strategic planning. Strategic planning is the managerial process of creating and maintaining a fit between the organization's objectives and resources and the evolving market opportunities. I want you to remember that concept of the fit between inside in the organization and outside the market. Strategic marketing management addresses these questions. What is the organization's main activity at a particular time? Well, that's what it has inside. And how will it reach its goals? That's merging the inside with the outside. Again, strategic planning evolves the company. And the reason is the company inside has got to evolve because the environment outside is always evolving. Remember this, all markets are dynamic. All markets are dynamic. That simply means that they're always changing. And it's interesting to look at some companies who did a good job of evolving and some companies that did a not so good job of evolving. And we'll look at the post-slide rule company, IBM, Western Union, Nike, Woolworth, and Walmart. And I'll start with the post-slide rule company. And the name of the company pretty much tells you what happened to it. Well, first off, what is a slide rule? A slide rule is a mechanical analog computer used primarily for multiplication and division, and also for functions such as roots, logarithms, and trigonometry. It kind of looks like a wooden ruler with a spacer in the middle that slides back and forth, because that's exactly how it worked, so that you could, if you needed to make these types of calculations, do them very, very quickly. Of course, once the calculator was invented, the days of the slide rule were numbered. There was nothing that the people at the post-slide rule could have done to stop the elimination of the slide rule. It became completely unnecessary with the calculator. But what they could have done is evolve the company. They had some capabilities and assets that could be utilized. The two main companies in the new calculator business were brand new to this. Post could have been a player in the calculator business, but they stubbornly clung to this dying technology, this slide rule technology. Now let's look at an example of a company that did a much better job of evolving, and that would be IBM. Here's a great little trivia question. IBM, what does that acronym stand for? IBM, that stands for International Business Machines. Machines. IBM started as a machine company. In fact, their first product lines were cash registers and then tabulating equipment. And then they got into office equipment and became a major player in typewriters. They saw an emerging new technology and came to dominate the computer industry. They had more than 90% market share of the computer industry, mainframe computers. Here's a picture of one of their major product lines, the IBM 7090 computer system. Here's some interesting facts about the IBM 7090. It was introduced in 1959. It cost $2.9 million. Now, if we look at that in today's dollars, that's $23 million in today's dollars. How powerful was the IBM 7090? How much could it calculate? Well, it was far and away the most powerful supercomputer at its time. But let's compare it with some technology nowadays. As you can see in the upper half of that graphic, the IBM 7090, significantly more power than anything else out there. But it's kind of dwarfed by what's out there now. In fact, this piece of equipment that costs $23 million in today's dollars has significantly less computing power than the Nintendo Entertainment System. Significantly less power than the Sega Genesis system. But IBM didn't just stick with this dying mainframe technology. They saw the light and they evolved into personal computers. There was the iconic IBM desktop. They became a major player in laptops. There's the IBM ThinkPad. Of course, you don't see any IBM ThinkPads around anymore. They decided that the computer business was becoming too cost and price sensitive. It was becoming too commoditized, and they decided to get out of it. When they decided to get out of it, they decided to spin off, sell their computer business, and so they sold that to Lenovo, the Chinese computer giant. So now when you see a ThinkPad, it doesn't say IBM ThinkPad on it, it says Lenovo ThinkPad. Let's look at another example of a company that did not evolve well, and that would be Western Union. Western Union was the dominant player in the telegraph industry. Well, there is no telegraph industry anymore. No one sends telegrams like Western Union dominated. Western Union still does exist as part of First Data Corporation, but their business basically is money transfer, a tiny business compared to the dominant business that they had before. Okay, let's look at another good example of a company that evolved well, Nike. And you're, of course, familiar with Nike, and there's the famous, iconic Nike swoosh. Nike actually started not as a manufacturer of athletic shoes and athletic apparel and equipment, but as a distributor. Blue Ribbon Sports was the name of the company. They were the exclusive North American distributor for a Japanese company, Asics Tiger. It was the Tiger Marathon shoes that was the major product line for Nike, or Blue Ribbon Sports as they were called at the time. They had some ideas for new shoes. The people at Tiger didn't want to make them for them, so Nike got into the manufacturing on their own. At that point, they needed a brand name, so they came up with the Nike name. It was the so-called waffle trainer pictured there that was their real breakthrough product. Of course, they evolved into cross-training shoes and basketball shoes. Air Jordan became a major product line for them. They evolved into virtually every aspect of athletic footwear, including improbably ice skates, although they sold off the ice skating business. They got heavily into equipment, especially in golf. They're trying to continue to increase their global dominance. And of course, with soccer being such a global sport, Nike's making a major push into soccer, but they're going after Adidas, who's very, very strong there. Of course, they've gotten into apparel, and all manner of equipment. Another company who did not do a good job of evolving is a company called Woolworth. You've probably never heard of Woolworth, but at one point, Woolworth was the most dominant company in terms of market capitalization in the world. They were the Apple of their day, if you will. And the reason was there was a Woolworth store in virtually every town in America. In fact, when they built the Woolworth building in Lower Manhattan, it was the tallest building in the country. Now, there's the picture of the Woolworth building in Lower Manhattan. It's still there, but you don't see it like this because it's dwarfed by skyscrapers all around it. Woolworth eventually went bankrupt in the late 1990s because they did not evolve past their original business, five and dime retailing. An example of a retailer who has evolved well is, of course, Walmart. Walmart came around in 1962 as a mass merchandise discounter, but they continue to evolve, adding departments, including food, to the point now where Walmart is the largest grocery retailer in the United States with more than 30% share of the U.S. grocery retail market. Is it possible that Walmart might go away and not exist anymore? Almost impossible to think that, but it would have been impossible to think that of Woolworths, a number of years ago. As long as Walmart continues to do a good job and evolve, they should be doing just fine. But it begs the question, what are really successful companies going to do as they evolve? Apple, and we're going to talk more and more and more about Apple and how they have done very, very good job of evolving. The people in the traditional cable industry have really got to make some changes because distribution and delivery of content, is changing so rapidly, digital and others. McDonald's, the fast food industry, is changing very, very rapidly. You may not know who Cengage is, but they are the publisher of your textbook, and we'll talk about the rapidly changing textbook industry in class. We'll also talk in class about Disney and the major evolutionary changes that they've made. But that'll do it for this module.